to Yaakov amongst all of his different wives and their handmaidens. But Reuben slept with one of Yaakov's handmaidens, so he was out. He didn't get the firstborn blessing. Number 2 and number 3, they committed a raid and murder of a whole bunch of people in revenge to Dinah, which was their sister, one of Yaakov's daughters, being raped. And because of that act, they were out as a possibility for getting the firstborn blessing. So not by happenstance, of course, God had it all planned that Judah would get the firstborn blessing. He should have gotten the whole firstborn blessing, in other words, been the authority over all the other brothers, and received all of the financial blessing. But Yaakov did something different. He split up and he gave Ephraim the monetary blessing part of the firstborn blessing. He didn't give him the authority. He split it up. He gave Ephraim what's called a double portion, financial blessing, and he gave Judah the authority blessing, part of the blessing. So you can study this all very carefully. Once again, it's in Genesis 48, 49, and 50. And this study is pretty important if you want to understand the whole Bible. And you'll understand Jacob's blessing. So if you can, I heartily suggest that you at least read through it a couple times and study it. So the placement of the tribes around the tabernacle, it had tremendous prophetic symbolism and meaning. Next slide, please. So I wanted to take a few minutes to show you something else that may help you understand the Old Testament and New Testament prophecies. Each of the 4 dominant or leader tribes had a specific symbol or emblem by which they were known. In fact, all of the tribes had a specific emblem that they were known by, but we're going to concentrate on the 4 leader tribes. The four lead tribes of the 4 groups of 3. We all know the symbol of Judah is the lion. We even call Christ the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Well, the tribe of Ephraim's symbol was a male calf, a bull, or sometimes it was referred to as an ox, a male ox. Dan's tribal symbol is a little bit more of a mystery, according to the Jewish Hebrew sages, as the tribe itself, at times it was a snake, and other times it was a flying snake, and more traditionally it has been accepted by the Jewish sages that it's an eagle with a snake in its mouth. So Dan is an eagle, and Ephraim is an ox, Judah is a lion. Now Reuben's symbol, he's on the south, his symbol was a man, was a human. So the 4 dominant leader tribes, once again, which represented all the 12 tribes, each had a symbol. One was a lion, one seems to be an eagle, another was a bull or an ox, and the last was a man or a human. It's going to get interesting, believe me. I'm going to get to it here. And these tribes, they surrounded God's earthly dwelling place, the tabernacle. They protected the sanctuary of God from outsiders, and the Lord protected them from their enemies. Now, as we know, nothing in the Bible stands alone. It's all connected. And to demonstrate this, I want to go to Ezekiel chapter 1. And once again, I'm reading it from the Complete Jewish Bible. In the 13th year, on the 5th day of the 4th month, while I was among the exiles at Kivar River, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. This is Ezekiel's writing this. On the 5th day of the month, which is during the 5th year of King Jocham's exile, the word of Adonai came to the prophet Ezekiel, son of Buzi, in the land of Kasdim by the Kivar River. There the hand of Adonai was on him. I looked and saw a windy storm approaching from the north, and a huge cloud with flashing fire, glowing brightly all around with the color of gleaming amber. within the fire. Inside there appeared to be 4 living creatures that looked like human beings, but each one had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, with feet like calves' hooves. They glittered like burnished bronze. Beneath their wings they had human hands on their 4 sides. The 4 of them had faces and wings as follows. They touched one another with their wings, and they did not turn when they moved, but each one moved straight forward. As for the appearance of their faces, they had human faces in front. Each of the 4 had a lion's face on the right. Each of the 4 had a bull's face on the left. And each of the 4 had an eagle's face toward the rear. So Ezekiel was a prophet that lived about 700 years after the time of Moses. And God seemed to communicate to Ezekiel through visions, and at times some of them were really bizarre, to say the least. But the vision that he had in the first chapter of Ezekiel begins with a view of heaven and God's throne area, and it speaks about 4 living creatures. They had 4 wings, 4 faces. Now notice what Ezekiel 1:10 says. Once again, I'll read that. As for the appearance of their faces, they had human faces in front. Each of the 4 had a lion's face on the right. Each of the 4 had a bull's face on the left. And each of the 4 had an eagle's face towards the rear. And we're told that wherever the Spirit of God went, they went. This really is more of a God incident than not a coincidence, obviously. The 4 living creatures, 4 faces. One was a lion, one was an eagle, one was a bull, one was a man. Now, where did we just see those symbols? They were the representative symbols of the 4 dominant tribes of Israel surrounding the tabernacle. So is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Even more, just like wherever the tabernacle with the Spirit of God went, the Israelites went with it. So these strange creatures went wherever the Spirit of God went. Now notice something else. The lion was on the right. The right of anything in the Bible was symbolic of the best, the most dominant, the strongest, and the most important, and at times it was even the holiest position. For instance, your right hand, your right eye, your right foot, your right leg, your right knee, they all symbolized the best and most important. The left was symbolic of something of lesser value. It was still of value, but it wasn't as valuable as the right. Right was also equivalent to east. Right was the dominant and the holy. East was the dominant and the holy direction. The lion was on the living creature's right. Judah was encamped on the right side, the east side of the tabernacle. And it all fits. The left side was the equivalent to the west. The bull's face was on the left side of the living creature. Just as Ephraim, who symbolizes the bull, was encamped on the left side, the west side of the tabernacle. The front, or the south side, of the living creature was a man. It was a human. A man symbolized Reuben, who encamped on the front, or the south side of the tabernacle. And finally, on the back, near the side of the rear side of the living creature was the face of an eagle. The eagle was a symbol of Dan, who camped on the rear side, the north side of the tabernacle. Oh, but it doesn't end there. Now turn to Revelation chapter 4. There are disadvantages to having your Bible on your phone. It takes a while sometimes. Okay. So, Revelation chapter 4, beginning in verse 5. I get chills whenever I start reading this story. From the throne came forth lightnings, voices, and thunderings, and before the throne were 7 flaming torches, which are the sevenfold Spirit of God. In the front of the throne was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. In the center, around the throne, were 4 living beings covered with eyes in front and behind. The first living being was like a lion. The second living being was like an ox. The third living being had a face that looked human, and the fourth living being was like a flying eagle. Each of the 4 living beings had 6 wings and was covered with eyes inside and out, and day and night they never stopped saying, "Holy, holy, holy is Adonai, God of heaven's armies, the one who was and who is coming." This is a vision given to the Apostle John on the island of Patmos that, not surprisingly, is quite similar to that of Ezekiel, because both of the visions were of heaven and of God's throne. God doesn't change. He didn't change from Ezekiel. He didn't change to John. He didn't change now. The 4 living creatures are still there. Now remember, what was the primary purpose of the tabernacle? It was God's dwelling place on earth. And Moses, was told to make the tabernacle after the pattern he had been shown by God. So the tabernacle was an earthly, physical replica made after the pattern of God's heavenly, spiritual dwelling place. So Revelation 4 speaks once again of these living creatures or living beings. Notice again that these beings appeared to be composed of a lion, an ox or a bull, a human, a man, which is a man, and an eagle. Now, notice one thing that's often overlooked. Right? I haven't read this in any of the commentaries, and it's just like, it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. There's a man in the throne room of God. Presumably, the man has been there in the presence of God since time long ago. Isn't that interesting? You know, we think mankind is only 6,000 years old. Mankind has been in God's presence, in God's memory, in God's thoughts, and His desires and His hopes for as long as you could possibly think of. So these living creatures in Ezekiel and in Revelation are the same creatures that are directly associated with the 4 dominant tribes of Israel that represent all of Israel. In fact, the living creatures have direct correlation even as concerning which direction or which side of the living creature in each of the various faces is placed, and it's exactly as the tribes of Israel are placed around the tabernacle. Ezekiel and John's Revelation visions were of heaven, or more specifically of God's dwelling place in heaven. The living creatures are some type of guardian or servant spirit for God, and they surround His throne, and it says they go with Him wherever He goes. And there's a man among them. So think about all the times, let's say, when Jacob wrestled with God. There was somewhere in that vicinity, there was a man, there was Jacob, there was an eagle, there was a goat, there was an ox, there was a lion somewhere in the vicinity. When God walked with Adam in the Garden of Eden, He had just created all those animals. In fact, He brought all those animals to Adam, and Adam named them. So you know that all of those were present wherever God went. When he met Abraham, before He cut the covenant with him, and He talked with him, and He said, "I'm going to go to Sodom and Gomorrah, and this is what I'm going to do." All of those creatures, or some form of those creatures, were with Him because they always accompanied God wherever He goes. So the tabernacle, the physical dwelling place of God, was built in the image of God's heavenly throne, the spiritual dwelling place of God, and the 4 dominant tribes of Israel were the physical model of the spiritual creatures, right down to the way they surrounded and moved with His earthly dwelling place, the tabernacle, and His heavenly dwelling place. So this is likely why the various Israelite tribes had their symbols modeled after those living creatures, and this is probably why they were positioned around the tabernacle the way they were. It's unbelievable almost to me that how God can just put all of these things together. And don't forget this. Well, this information, you may be able to wow your friends and say a game of Bible trivia. It's also crucial to understand the prophecy of it. So, suddenly, when you read the book of Revelation or you're reading Ezekiel, these strange creatures that you read about, all of a sudden they just, bing, they make sense to you, don't they? So, next week, we are going to start in chapter 25. So, let's close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord God, we just praise you and thank you for the opening up your word to us, showing us the wilderness tabernacle in new and interesting and fascinating, but more importantly in spiritually significant ways. And we just thank you for that information that you're giving to us. I just pray, Lord, that we would absorb it, we would use it in our daily lives, we would use it in our witness as we go out in our workplace, go out in school, or go out into the shopping centers. Help us, Lord, to assimilate this information and use it to be better witnesses for you. And I just pray, Lord, that as we continue to study this topic, that we'll learn to love you more. We'll learn to learn about your redemptive power and your the sacrificial system that you put in place, and use that in our lives to great effect and to your great glory. And for all these things, we just give you praise and thanks, Father, in the name of Jesus.